Accounts receivables are so much worse for a law firm than most lawyers understand or appreciate. So much worse. And so I'm going to say more about your accounts receivables here. Again,
you're listening to the Profit First for Lawyers podcast, the official companion show to the book Profit First for Lawyers by RJon Robins. Now, this podcast is for you if you want to bring home more profit while working fewer hours in the office, spending even more time with your loved ones, and turning your office into a lean, mean, profit-breathing machine. So if you're tired of working for your law firm instead of your law firm working for you, stay tuned for some really practical insights that will get you the results you've always wanted. It's time to put your BS aside for the next few minutes and put yourself, your family, your firm, and your profit first. Welcome back to the Profit First for Lawyers podcast. I'm your host, Carly, and today I am lucky enough to be in our virtual studio with one of our fabulous C-suite members, Etienne Hardre. Etienne, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Carly. Happy to be here.
Oh, I am thrilled. We're going to have a fun conversation today. Do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself to those who don't know you? Going to give us your who are you, how long have you been doing what you're doing, and how do you help law firm owners?
I am a CFO and CEO advisor with How to Manage a Small Law Firm. I've been with How to Manage for, I think, going on 2 years now, just about at the 2-year mark. But I've been doing this, not specifically for law firms, but for all kinds of small businesses for nearing on 3 decades now. So lots and lots of fun in the history here. And I've also owned a lot of businesses, started a lot of businesses. So I'm kind of one of those serial perpetual entrepreneurs.
I knew, of course, that you were one of our fractional CEOs, but what drew you to the finance part of things?
Oh, that's one of my favorite questions. Okay, so when I was early on when I was a young kid and I was going to college, and I ended up in the business department, I had an accounting professor who described accounting and described numbers as the language of business. And so I immediately started reading financial statements and spreadsheets and everything with that in mind. So every time I see a balance sheet, every time I see a profit and loss statement, and every time I see a cash flow forecast, I am seeing the story of that entire business. Every one of those numbers represents somebody somewhere doing something, not doing something, taking some kind of action. So the reason I got into finance is because I think it's the easiest and quickest way to wrap your arms around the whole business beast as efficiently as possible.
And I don't know why, but immediately my brain went to like your star maps back in the day were your navigational tools. And if you knew how to read them, then you could go anywhere in the world. And if you didn't, you probably were not brave enough to step out on the boat. Or if you did, you could get yourself into some big trouble.
That's right. You get lost in a hurry if you don't know how to read the map. But that's exactly right. It is that way. You can see your North Star. You can see your constellations. You can find your way around pretty quickly. RJon has said it before, actually. You can tell different people who read through the business plan. I flip through the business plan all the way to the financials first. I read the financials first, and then I go back and read the story of the business. That's just the way I'd see it.
Yeah, I kind of like that. This is like, here's the bones of the business. Let's make sure that your bones are good before we go and put all the other fun stuff on there. Look, I could talk to you about this forever, Etienne, but real quickly, before we go off onto any of those bunny trails, I know that you brought a clip from the studio today. I'm pretty excited about this one. Do you want to go ahead and tease this particular clip to our listeners?
So this clip was on my mind as soon as you invited me on the show, because it's one of my favorite stories that I tell from Profit First for Lawyers. I tell it when I'm at workshops. I tell it to members that I'm coaching, and it's constantly coming up in conversation. It is perhaps one of the most powerful lessons that a law firm owner can learn about their finances.
Okay, that's a really good teaser. Let's go ahead. Let's get to it. Let's roll the clip.
I know I already wrote about accounts receivables, but accounts receivables are so much worse for a law firm than most lawyers understand or appreciate. So much worse. And so I'm going to say more about your accounts receivables here. Again, because in the grand scheme of things, as important as your law firm's accounts receivables are, I know it's about the ninth thing on your mind that you're going to want to or be willing to discuss with your bookkeeper each month. I know you don't want to talk about your AR, but you got to talk about your AR. So please consider these facts. A law firm incurs a cost to market, sell, produce, and deliver work to help its clients. So let's say your law firm has a client, client A, who doesn't pay their bill. They didn't say, well, I think I'll pay you for your labor costs and for my share of your operating costs of the business, and I'll only stiff you for the 33% of profits you're expecting to make. That's not what they said. They stiffed you on the whole bill, which means the profit that you would normally enjoy from two other cases are now tied up in this one.
So Etienne, why was this section of the book, which, by the way, for anybody who has the book and is following along, you can find this one in chapter 14. This is the 9th item on RJon's list of financial document statements that you're going to want to have reports on. Etienne, why did this one speak to you?
Okay. So I'm meeting with law firm owners regularly. And one of the first questions I ask them when they say, I'm having financial difficulty. I'm, maybe in a cash crunch, or I don't have access to all the money and all the profit that I think I should get out of this law firm. One of the very first questions I ask them is, do you have any accounts receivable? And invariably they will say, yes, I have some accounts receivable. And I'll say, how much is it? And very often I get numbers that are in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. We're talking 100,000, 300,000. I had one firm with over $500,000 in accounts receivable. And it's especially painful if we dig in to what RJon is actually saying. So let me expand, if it's okay, a little bit on this entire lesson, which I think could have been its own chapter in its own right. And I think RJon actually has done presentations on it before. I'm certainly going to do them at workshops in the future because this is important. Here's what happens. Client A engages with you. But before client A engages with you, you as the law firm owner went out, you paid for marketing, you paid for a salesperson, or you went and did the sales call. You did all the efforts to engage this person, which is an expensive and time-consuming endeavor. You're now happy that they signed your engagement letter. Then you assigned that work to a very expensive attorney who proceeds to spend days, weeks, potentially months on the engagement, costing you a significant amount of time and money, and also committing to the particular case or matter and not committing to other cases or matters. And then when it comes time, your staff, who you also pay, sends out the bill and there is no payment that comes back. So you have no cash in the door. You incurred all of this expense. You also have to pay all of the overhead for the entire time. Whatever portion of your overhead was going to be covered by this particular engagement as you had calculated in your financial forecasts. And then you also needed to get a profit. So this was where your return comes from. This is how you feed your family. This is how you pay your own home rent. This is the whole reason why you launched the law firm in the first place. Okay, so now that I've actually laid out this story in its, sort of gory detail, this person doesn't pay you and you get no cash coming in the door. However, you still have to pay all of these expenses. So RJon, in his example in the clip, used a 33% profit margin. So we're going to go with that for a second, but I'm going to come back. So remember the number 33%. I'm going to come back and show you how much worse this gets if your profit margin is not 33%. So you had planned that this cash flow was going to cover all these expenses and then provide you with 33% of profit. Now, unfortunately, you have to go through that whole process all over again with a new prospective client. You go out, you have to market, you have to find another one, you've got to sell to the new person, you've got to get them in the door, you've got to assign them and manage the production team to do it. This person, though, client B, pays their bill. All is well and good, right? No, that's not how the math works because you already had to cover all of the costs. So you also have to cover all the costs for client B. That's the problem. There's only 33% of profit left from client B that can go anywhere else in your business. You take that 33% of profit from client B and it gets sucked up in the old costs of client A. So you still don't have any profit from client A, and you actually don't have any profit from client B either. You've now worked for free on 2 clients just because one didn't pay you. You go out, you find client C, you do the same process all over again, you make your 33% profit. Now that just goes to cover the overhead from client A. So now you've gone 3 clients and you haven't made a dime. You have to go out and find another client, a 4th client. You have to go out, you have to market to them, you have to find them out there, you've got to beat out your competitors to get them, you have to add them to an engagement, you have to have your team work on it, and you have to collect their money in payment. Then that profit goes to backfill the profit from client A. So after 4 clients, you have made the profit from the first client finally, just because you allowed them to slip through the cracks and become accounts receivable. How depressing is that? How defeating? How overwhelmingly like you're climbing up a hill that keeps slipping out from under your feet and you just never get to your goal. If you have to work 4 times harder to achieve the same end goal simply because you let one turn into accounts receivable.
We reach out to varied people, and I have never had a case where somebody else has come back to me in the same season and said, I want to highlight this same clip, until this season. And it was the same clip, right? We had Ed Gagan, who is one of our law firm owners who works with How to Manage a Small Law Firm. And he also had the story, but, coming personally from him, not like he's working with a bunch of different lawyers, right? And I think he had quite a bit of AR, but not as much as some others that you've obviously seen. And it did make me laugh because in the book, RJon is so adamant that AR is worse than you can even imagine. It's worse than anybody wants to talk about. You don't want to talk about it because it is kind of demoralizing, right? It's one of those, like, if I put the blanket over my head, the monsters under the bed can't see me. Like, if I don't look at the AR, maybe it's not as bad as I think it is. But he feels so strongly about it that he put AR in the book twice in both chapters 13 and 14. And so it kind of made me laugh that this season we are also revisiting it twice because it is so much worse than people think it is. Okay, so you promised that you were going to, I'm remembering this 33%. You said you were going to break it down how much worse it actually is than even that.
Yeah. So I won't go into the math on it because I'm a math nerd, obviously. And just trust me, this math works, and I will show you how it works in just a second. RJon used 33% as your profit margin. That's an idealistic profit margin for a law firm. Honestly, when you're very, very small, you can achieve ranges of 33 to even over 50% when you're very small, but you're doing most of the production. When you're very, very large, you can get back to 33% because of economies of scale and the efficiencies that you've grown in your law firm. But usually those law firms that are between 500,000 and say 2 million, they're honestly generating less than a 33% profit margin most of the time because they're growing, so they're investing in new people and all this stuff, and things are just less efficient than they would like it to be, but because they're building, right? And so that's normal. Or because things are broken and they need to fix them, and so they're working on improving their profit. So I actually had a member who was down below 10%, but we're going to use 10% because the math is a little bit easier, but he was below 10%. So imagine this is going to be worse. Okay. So your profit margin determines how many more of these customers you have to go and get before you pay for the first person who turned into accounts receivable. Just the one average case that turned into accounts receivable. Say that case was $10,000. You have to go out and find 3 more $10,000 cases to just cover the profit from the first $10,000 case. And if you only found $5,000 cases after that, you would have to find more cases because it has to cover the profit that was expected on the first one. Okay. So let's understand that it's about these are all identical cases. We're assuming these are all identical average cases. But if your profit margin is way down at 10%, say, which I'll bet you a lot of your listeners are saying right now, yeah, that's, I'm at about a 10% profit margin right now. Then you have to go out and get 11 more because you're only getting a smaller slice now. Your profit margin has shrunk to 10%. So now these little slices are going back over to the cost of goods sold, the labor, the marketing, the sales, the overhead. Little slices are chipping away at this accounts receivable like mountain that you have allowed to just slip into your firm. And then eventually the 10% slips away over to here. And now on the $10,000, instead of, let's see, 33%, that would be $3,333 of profit you'd expected. If you're only at a 10% margin, then you are only going to get $1,000 at the end of the whole day after you've gone 11 more customers. So my poor member who was at a much lower and had a much higher accounts receivable, we calculated that for, I think it was $250,000 of accounts receivable, he needed new business, just to cover the lost profit in his accounts receivable of north of $2 million. He has to go out and find an entire year's worth of business for his law firm just to recover the lost profit that he's letting sit in his accounts receivable. And it's terrifying and it's depressing. And it's worth hiring a full-time person to just go collect your accounts receivable. And it is worth investing in good policies and procedures like red rubber banding files when retainers are starting to deplete. It's worth fixing it on the front end. It's worth saying no to a client and not taking them on and not engaging them at all if they're going to be a bad credit risk for you. It's a staggering mountainous problem that most law firms struggle to get out from under.
Yeah. Well, and I imagine if it's one of those things that people just don't like to look at, right? I imagine there's got to be some guilt or some shame around it sometimes too, right? It can be almost impossible to get out from under the mountain if you feel yourself being squeezed but can't figure out where it's coming from.
I like RJon's attitude on it, where he bashes the listeners in the head and say, solve this problem. But also, there's some compassion there too, because it is a difficult conversation to have with somebody. If you let it get to accounts receivable for a long time and say it's more than 30, 60, 90 days overdue now, especially in certain practice areas. So for example, you're a criminal defense attorney and the case doesn't go your client's way. Are you really going to be able to collect? Like, are you really if you hadn't collected already before the final trial resolution, you're probably not going to collect from your client after that. So there's some difficult conversations there. Or let's say, it's been a while and the person forgot about it, the customer forgot about it, and now they don't have the money. They spent it on other things. They had planned to pay you, but you never came and sent them a proper bill, maybe, or you never followed up and they lost it in the mail, or they meant to get to it and they just never did. And because you weren't disciplined about it, they moved on with their lives. And now a couple months later, they've already gone on vacation and they don't have the money anymore. So it's an awkward, difficult conversation to get on the phone sometimes and say, pay me what I'm owed. I hear law firm owners say it all the time. Well, I just don't want to seem needy or demanding. I have to fix them of that broken mindset all the time and say, look, these intelligent adult human beings entered into a contract with you. You fulfilled your side of the engagement. They have not fulfilled their side of the engagement. You're not being a jerk by asking them to fulfill their obligations. You're not being a jerk by sending them to collections if you need to. You're not being a jerk by following up with them regularly or putting them on payment plans or whatever you need to do to get that money flowing back in the door. So it's a bit of a mindset issue. And so I have some compassion for people. But on the other hand, as RJon says, effects have causes. And the effect of your business being in the rut that it's in is because you're allowing this stuff in an undisciplined way to fester in your law firm. And you don't have the courage to go have that conversation with them and just say, hey, look, you owe me, pay me. How can we work this out?
I appreciate that you put it that way too, Etienne, because that's one of the things that that I hear a lot in this seat, right? Is that people, especially when they're first implementing profit first accounting in general, right? That a lot of these law firm owners have a lot of guilt or negativity toward the word profit, towards the thought of taking profits. And so sometimes it feels like this mindset kind of bleeds into this situation with their AR, right? Where they're like, well, I don't want to seem greedy, or I don't want to seem like a bad person, or that the money is the only thing that I care about, right? Where, and it's really just like, no, you're right? These two adult humans entered into a contract. You fulfilled your end. They need to fulfill their end also. That's how contracts work.
You're exactly right. And more than that, my favorite thing that RJon says on the regular basis is that law firm owners make profit by helping more people. So the reality is, you have an obligation as a law firm owner to run a profitable law firm. You have an obligation not just to your own family and your kids, your partner, whoever, but also to the staff who have joined you on this journey, and also to future clients, because the more profitable your law firm is, the better you're freed up to be able to serve them. Lawyers are often asked to do pro bono. They're required to do pro bono work, a certain amount of it. And you are much more capable as a pro bono lawyer if you're very profitable in your day job. You are more likely to be able to cut somebody a break. You are more able to give somebody a bonus. You are more able to give the next client, who comes across your desk, who's truly, a charity case. You can actually say, yeah, I'll work with you. I will do that for free. Why? Because my massively profitable law firm over here allows me the freedom to do that. And so I urge law firm owners, be profitable, be as profitable as you can. You now have the tools to go and make the world a better place. You could give it all away to charity if you want. I don't care. Make the world a better place with it, though. Without profit, you don't have that freedom. With profit, you have all the choices in the world.
So do you have like a one or two sizes fits all or fits most solution? What do you do when you come into a law firm, look at their financials, realize that their AR is sucking all of the profits and probably the life out of their firm? What do you do to get them, number one, to fix the hole in the bucket, and number two, to start solving the problem?
First, don't keep trying to fill the bucket if it has a massive hole in the bottom. So step number one is stop the accounts receivable problem from getting any worse. Okay. So we go through the entire process of, all the way from marketing. If your avatar is inaccurate, then you're going to attract customers who may not pay. So solve your avatar problem to pre-qualify potential new clients such that you target those who will pay. And you can talk to a qualified marketing person about it. They sometimes just don't even think about that as one of the qualifications. But when we look at the AR problem, we can trace it all the way back to your very first identification. This is a potential customer. A potential customer is someone who is willing and able to purchase your services. If they don't have the money for you, they're not a prospective customer. Stop marketing to them. Stop selling them. Don't allow them into your firm. Don't offer to work with them. They're just not the person you're working with. If you want to sell $10,000 estate plans, don't target people who are looking for a deal at $2,000, right? Send them off to somebody else and say, look, I do high-end estate plans. I'm not doing cheap ones. By the time this all works its way through, you're not going to pay my bill. So you can stop the problem from the beginning.
If your niche is high-end estate plans and you get somebody in the door who does lower-end estate plans, then you can have a really great referral relationship with somebody who specializes in lower-end estate plans, and they can send you business too.
Exactly. So I've seen that kind of relationship work really well. There's also the next step would be to pull all of that thinking through every step of your client engagement, right? So what does your engagement letter say? How do you handle retainers? Are you using a trust? Do you red rubber band your accounts because you review them on a regular basis to see how the retainer is being depleted? And then you ask them to top up the retainer prior to continuing work on the case or on the matter. Um, red rubber banding is this process of stopping the work. It comes from the old school days when everything was in paper, right? You would literally take a red rubber band, the file folder of the client here, and you would slap a giant red rubber band around the file folder so that somebody cannot get into it without removing the red rubber band. So you know that if they open the file and did work on this case, they're ignoring the warning that this person doesn't have a retainer on file. So that's where the red rubber band terminology comes from. Nowadays, we do it in the case management system. You can literally have your project manager, your case manager lock down a file. And I'm sorry, attorneys, paralegals, you don't get access to this. Why not? I need work to work on it. They don't have any money left. You should go work on somebody else. And then the case manager can reopen it for deadlines or things like that. But at least there's that locked gate that prevents you from potentially wasting an entire day's worth of some production labor.
Yeah. Well, and that it reminds me of, in the book, RJon makes this point very forcefully in a very spicy RJon way, where he talks about, that the mindset issues that you may have around asking clients for money are probably not non-existent within your law firm, your lawyers that you employ, right? And so if somebody is continuing to do work for a client that has not paid their bill, then they are stealing from you, right? They are stealing because they know that you're still going to pay their salary. Now, they don't normally think of it in those terms, right? I say probably the majority of people have the best of intentions. But at the end of the day, right, I think that this is very smart to remove that temptation and say, we know we care about these people as human beings, but the car has run out of gas and we can't get to their destination without putting more gas in the car.
Exactly. And if you're disciplined about it in that way and say, this is the way I'm choosing to run my law firm because it's profitable, it will keep us around for a long time. It will enable us to help more and more clients in the future. It will enable us to be a better impact on our community. And it will allow me to pay your salary for longer and give you bonuses and better benefits and all those things. You just have to be disciplined about it and choose, this is the way we're going to run the law firm. And then you can always handle the exceptions. There's always going to be exceptions to the rule. And some lawyer may come to you and say, can I make an exception on this one? And you'll have the tools and the authority and the freedom to decide whether you will or not. So it's not like you have to be a hard ass about it, but you do need to be disciplined about it.
Being a little bit more disciplined, making sure that we have a policy in place that removes temptation to continue working on an account that is not able to pay or can't top up their retainer or so on and so forth. I mean, obviously in an ethical way that follows the bar rules in your state. What do we do next?
Okay. So we've gotten all the way to the point where we stop work when folks don't pay. So now we've gotten to the point where there's sort of an overlap area in between the whole stopping the leaky bucket and then solving the accounts receivable problem you've already let grow in your firm. The gray area, the overlap area is sort of like, okay, what do you do now that somebody's got red rubber band? Be flexible with them. You need the money in your firm. Help them understand what the timeline is. Have a sales call with them again. Really, the accounts receivable conversation is another sales call. You have to remind them. They've forgotten. Back in the day when they first joined your firm, which could have been months or potentially years ago, you sat down and had a sales call with them. And in that sales call, you helped them understand the consequences of not taking action and the benefits of taking action. And you got that to a very visceral sort of like, it's in my soul, like I've got to take action sort of point for them. And that's why they signed your engagement letter. So we have to help them see, I can help you and life will get worse if you don't take action. So that's what causes them to then engage. You have to have that conversation with them again. You have to remind them, I'm stopping work on your case. Sit down. Let's talk about you're not taking action again. What are the consequences of not taking action? So what are the consequences of me not continuing the legal activity I was taking on your behalf? We're stopping midstream here. You have to have that sales conversation with them again. So if you have a dragon or a professional non-attorney salesperson in your firm, they need to be involved in this conversation with those who have become or are threatening to become accounts receivable. That's sort of the overlap process. So you can work with them, get them on a payment plan, get them to pay their balance at a discount, tell them you're going to delay their case until they can come up with the money, those kinds of things. But get the money in the door before it gets to be aged accounts receivable and adds to the pile that we still need to shovel out.
And I appreciate that you approached the thought of the sales call that way too, because I think that's another one of AR and sales are two of those things that a lot of lawyers and law firm owners don't really like to think about, right? Because they both kind of feel like, well, not so much AR, but profit and sales kind of feel like dirty words in certain cases. But in the way that we recommend that people handle their sales conversations with their PNCs, it's supposed to be loving, right? You are meeting somebody at a very human place, at a very vulnerable place. People are coming to you because they have a problem and they are looking for you to be the one to solve it. And all legal problems, as RJon says, are human problems, even in the B2B industry. Because if they didn't have pressure, if they didn't have that problem, they wouldn't be coming to you to solve it. And so it is meeting at a very human, vulnerable level, not, I think people tend to think of the old, car salesman adage sometimes where it's like, no, that's not what this is. It's because we care. And that's what I'm in the business of doing, right? I am in the business of helping people solve their personal problems through legal solutions. You're only benefiting people by working with them. They need what you have. And so it's not selfish to ask them to put gas in the car.
Exactly, because you being able to help them helps them. I mean, it seems so logical and so easy for us to talk about it here, and so hard to put into practice for some reason. But yeah, without the money available, I cannot do the things that are going to make your life better. So anyway, it's a sales conversation. It's about reminding them that you're here to help them. This is not combative. Even the accounts receivable collection call should not be a combative conversation. It should just be, look, I understand things or have slipped your mind or, are difficult right now or whatever. What can we do to help? That's really how you need to approach it.
I love that. Okay. So now we're reaching out to people who have AR with us, right? They're on our AR sheet, our aged tranches per the book. Is there like a policy that you recommend people have so that new clients coming in the door, that it's more difficult for them to end up on that AR report?
Well, you do all the things that we've talked about a bit. You screen them better, you engage with them better, you communicate with them better, you bill them frequently. The more frequently that you can send them a bill, it's a smaller bill. It hasn't grown to be, a month's worth of work. If you're only sending out your bills once a month, or God forbid, less than once a month, you're going to do an awful lot of work on somebody's case potentially before they write that check back to you. And so what you'd really like to do is be sending your bills out every 2 weeks. And then that doesn't give a whole lot of time for it to build up, so that the retainer replenishments are manageable and easy, or they have room on their credit card still so that you can hit their credit card. Let's talk about getting rid of the pile now, right? So now you've got this, potentially you're sitting here listening to this and realizing, oh my gosh, I have a bunch of accounts receivable and I need to get out there and solve this. So put into practice all the things we just talked about, but now let's also spend some time collecting what is owed to us, because this is a fast way to solve a lot of capital problems in your firm. You can get all that money or a percentage of that money directly into your law firm. And at this point, it is 100% profit, because again, as we mentioned at the beginning, we have already paid for the cost of goods sold associated with all of that accounts receivable and all the overhead associated with all of that accounts receivable. It will flow all the way through your P&L to the bottom line, every dollar you collect. So go and collect it, and it will improve your bottom line. Here's how to do that. Start with those who you need to organize your accounts receivable aging report by client, and you need to sort it and basically prioritize anybody who you just recently finished, who has started to become accounts receivable. So the more recent that accounts receivable is, the easier it will be to collect. The older it is, the harder it will be to collect. So start with the most recent stuff and collect it immediately. Then organize it by those who had a really great experience with you. Did they write you a review? Did you have an excellent outcome in their case? Were you able to accomplish everything that their goal was? Go through and find all those people. They know they owe you. They're happy with your service. They know you did a great job for them. Maybe their settlement was bigger than they thought it was going to be. The outcome was better than they expected it. Go and call those people and say, hey, look, it must have just slipped your mind. I understand things happen. This is what our records say you still owe. And also keep in mind, it could be an error in your records. So they might fire back and say, oh, I sent you a check a long time ago. And you go, oh, let me go check on that. Do you happen to have a copy of the check, or can you send me a copy of whatever transaction you used to pay so that I can have my team go and research this, and then go research it, and maybe it's an error. So keep that in mind. This is a fluid conversation, but generally those people will pay you as well. So you're left with the old stuff that, might not have had the rosiest outcome, or was, nothing was spectacular. I'm an optimist. That's why I'm an entrepreneur, but I'm an optimist. People will generally pay their debts, when pressured to do so, at least in our culture. And so there is a chance that a lot of those people will also convert and pay what they owe. But again, as I said earlier, do not be afraid to bribe them. Offer them, if you pay today, I'll knock 20% off your bill. You could knock 50% off the bill. Remember, you've already paid all those costs. Whatever dollars they give you goes straight to profit for you.
Wow, you're kind of blowing my mind right now, Etienne. So, okay.
Well, you got to get creative.
You got to get a little bit creative, right? I appreciate that we have spent this much time on this, because I agree. This is one of those things. Again, it's in the book twice, because this is something that we see with an awful lot of law firms, that they have a lot of AR. And I do think it's because as a whole, there are an awful lot of optimistic, altruistic individuals who are running law firms and who are opening their own law firms, right? Obviously, you're a big proponent of profit first accounting principles and making sure, like you said, right? Like, these are however many cases that you are now tied up in covering this AR, and that's not going to your family, and that's not going to compensate you as the owner for your risk and your loss and your efforts to grow and build something that is improving the lives of others. That was a very roundabout way for me to ask you, Etienne. What do you usually tell your law firm owner clients who are not yet doing profit first, but you know that it would make a big difference, a big improvement in their life and the lives of their families?
I always recommend profit first. I recommend it to them immediately. And the reason why I recommend it to them immediately, especially if their law firm is going poorly or not as profitable as it could be, especially then. And here's the reason why. Because when you force money out of the firm and away from operations, right, and into your own pocket, then if the firm still needs it for operations, let's say you're at right break even and you haven't made distributions to yourself in a year, and I still put the money in the profit account, because once it's there, once it's in your own pocket and you need to reinsert it into the firm in order to meet operations, suddenly you and your spouse and your kids and anybody else who is affected by that decision are suddenly having a really difficult conversation, a real hard conversation about what exactly is going on in this law firm that we took that money out and now we have to put it back in. And that's a healthy conversation to have. That's a very, very, very healthy conversation to have.
I was going to say, how do you get people convinced to do it when they're like, no, I don't want to have that conversation?
Well, they don't. And that's why they never take it out of their firm in the first place. They hide it and squirrel it away in these little buckets all over the place, just in case they ever need it again. And they let their law firm, knowing that they have these buckets, they let their law firm run in this terribly inefficient way, making all kinds of bad decisions. They don't oversight the vendors who are overcharging them and under-delivering. They don't oversight their staff who are making decisions and signing up for random things that they don't really need, that they're running the law firm inefficiently because they know that they have this safety net that they've sort of hidden away that they could always just shove back in whenever and never have to tell anybody about. But if it's in your own pocket and you got to say to your spouse, honey, we need to put money back into the law firm because I've run this thing into the ground and it's running inefficiently, that person who loves you deeply and wants you to be successful at this is going to say, oh my gosh, can I help? Oh my gosh, let's think about this. Oh my gosh, call your CEO, call your CFO and talk to them about how we can never have this happen to us ever again. And that's a really, really healthy place for you to be because now you're being held accountable to exactly what you got to do to get your law firm out of that situation permanently and forever.
I don't know. So I think that that's brilliant, but I do wonder like how many of your clients actually take you up on it when they know that that could be the result.
Well, I've had several, but it's like pulling teeth sometimes. You got to sit them down and you got to say, look, this is why this is important. All of the folks who have joined the membership at How to Manage a Small Law Firm, they've been through the process. They've seen it once or twice before. I mean, we choose our membership very carefully. Those people who agree to do the hard things, who are willing to do the hard things and who understand that it's a mindset shift, even if maybe after a few months of being with us, they're still struggling with the same mindset issues and still working through it. They knew at the beginning that this was going to be difficult, but it was going to get them to where they need to go.
So, okay, question for you, Etienne, then, because you work with How to Manage a Small Law Firm members, and we obviously are big proponents of Profit First as a whole. So how do you bridge the gap between AR sucking the profits, the life out of a firm, and requesting or recommending to your clients that they follow Profit First, that they start taking their profits first?
AR and Profit First work directly against each other. So you should implement Profit First, whether or not you have accounts receivable or not. That's when I say they work against each other, all that lost profit that sits out there makes it more difficult for somebody to get over the mindset of, I can't take profit out of my firm. I already don't have enough cash. Well, the reason you don't have enough cash is because you've let it all sit over here in your accounts receivable. So you have to implement Profit First. But remember, read the book, watch any of the old podcasts that Carly's done. Even if you just allocate $1 or 1% or anything, you've begun to put that profit aside. So you've begun down the path of that mindset of my profit comes first. That shift, that subtle shift in mindset will help you as you go to collect your accounts receivable. So they work in tandem with each other. But the more accounts receivable you have, the harder it gets to implement Profit First, which is to say you're bleeding your profits out of your firm, which is the very thing Profit First is designed to prevent. So start with Profit First immediately and allow that to bolster your need to force you to collect your accounts receivable.
Oh, Etienne, this has been so great. If I was going to kind of distill everything that we talked about today, it would be, number one, take a look at your AR report. The only place that you can make changes is in reality, and you can't make any changes if you don't know what reality is. So take a look at that. Number two would be, if you have a client who is on your aged AR report, don't keep adding more AR to it. Set up a red rubber band policy. Make sure that, I mean, it can be loving. It can be caring. You can have all the empathy in the world. You got to save yourself from yourself because AR is so much worse. I mean, Etienne has walked through this math. It is so much worse than you even think that it is. Implement a red rubber band policy. It's better for your clients as a whole. It's better for you. It's better for your business. And then I would say, set up some of these systems so that you prevent your new incoming clients from becoming AR, right?
Yeah,
did I miss anything, Etienne?
That's perfect. You summarized it so well, Carly. I could have had this all done in 2 seconds.
No. I think this was so valuable. I'm so glad that we did this today. I usually end every single interview with my very favorite question, Etienne, so I'm going to ask you that one now. completely divorced of everything we've spoken about so far. It does not have to be financially related. My favorite question is, what is one of the best or most profitable pieces of advice that you have taken action on since becoming a team member of How to Manage a Small Law Firm that has improved your life personally or professionally or in all of the areas above?
So for me, it's a lesson that I always knew, and I think everybody knows, but I have never seen it in such stark practice than at How to Manage a Small Law Firm. So I mentioned it briefly earlier, but RJon says it all the time, and other people say it all the time, but it's the idea that effects have causes. If you want your life to be a particular way, then change the things that you're doing. If you want a particular outcome, do the things that will produce that outcome. Even if you flub it up, even if you fail a little bit, practice, try it again, change the causes that you're attempting in order to change the outcomes that you're receiving. If you do not do that, then you are accepting the outcomes that you're getting. You are choosing them because you're persisting in doing the causes that will get that outcome. So do not expect to become a millionaire or a profitable law firm owner or to only work 20 hours a week or any of these other things. And personally in my own life, I've implemented this in the last year and a half, 2 years that I have been at How to Manage more than I've ever implemented it in any of the other businesses that I've started or any of the other places I've worked at, because it's so in your face here. Change the things you're doing to change the outcomes that you want to get.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that. Can I ask you to be a little bit vulnerable here and share some of the ways that you have implemented this in your own life and some of the differences you've seen?
So personally, it's transformed my own parenting. Just honestly, as a father, here I am teaching my kids about outcomes and consequences, and that their activities change the results. And so, because RJon and other members of How to Manage put such easy language to it and really invested in me in the mindset training and all the other stuff that we go through on a regular basis, I finally had the tools to be able to go to them, to my kids, and say, okay, it seems like you're not getting this. Let's try it a different way. Let me teach you about how this actually works. That if you change the things that you do on a regular basis, then you will change the outcomes you get. What kinds of outcomes do you want? And really have a kind of a deep conversation with them about what they want out of life, and how to get it. So that's been transformative for me, not in a professional way, but just in a personal way.
No, I think that's perfect. That's one of the things we've been talking about a lot on this particular episode, right? Is that we are human beings who work and love and interact with other human beings. And people are not just the job that they work. They're whole humans with a whole life on their own. Anyway, I appreciate that. Thank you so much for being willing to share. Etienne, I know that obviously you are one of our fractional CEOs, CFOs, and we don't really offer that service outside of our membership. But if we did have a member of the bubble who was listening, and who is looking for a CEO, CFO, how would they get in touch with you? Do you have space on your roster?
I have space for, I think, one more CFO, maybe two more CFOs, and a handful more of the monthly CEOs.
For anybody who might be listening, is help@howtomanage.com. Just ask for Etienne. That's ETIENNE. Of course, we'll put that in our show notes below. Etienne, thank you so much again for being on. I got a ton out of today. I'm sure that the audience did too. Thank you.
It's truly my pleasure, Carly. I love what you're doing on this podcast. Keep it up. I'm happy to be part of it.
And that's what we've got for you today, folks. I hope that this has been as impactful for you as it has been for me. Make sure that you stay tuned next time for even more great content. Again, we're trying to stuff as much really actionable, profitable advice, tips, tricks into these episodes so that you can take action. And I really, really hope that you are, so that you can see the results of these in your own firm. We'll see you next time. Thank you for joining us on another episode of the Profit First for Lawyers podcast. If you're enjoying what you're hearing, tell a friend and buy your copy of the book at profitfirstforlawyers.com. Your future self will thank you for it, and we will see you next time.